Before commencing our ceremonies, I would like to ask all of you to silence or switch off your mobile devices. Pariereko harkeli hürer. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Armen Yeganyan, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Armenia in Canada, Armenian community representatives of Montreal and Laval, religious leaders and religious representatives of Montreal and Laval, community leaders, community members, dear friends, and our guest of honor, Mr. Çalışlar from Istanbul, Turkey. Welcome to commemorate and remember Hrant Dink and his cause. This year marks the 7th anniversary of Hrant Dink's death. I now ask us to take a moment of silence. Thank you. I'm Diana, and now I invite Mrs. Lara to convey Bolsahay New Tune's opening remarks.
Քերաշնոր եւ արժանապատիվ հայրեր, մեծահարկ տեսփան, քաղաքային գազམ་ագերբություններու հարկերի ներկայացուցիչներ եւ սիրելի ներկաներ։ Այսօր բոլորս ալ հավաքված ենք ոգեգոճելու ազգային հերոս Hrant Դինքի սպանության 7-րդ տարելիցը։ Hrant Dink նահատակվեցավ հավատարիմ իր վեհ քաղաքարներուն, ըլլալով չանցուկն ու խիզախ մարդիկը։ Ըլլալով Թուրքիու մեջ ապրող հայմը Hrant հերոսապար ոտքի կանգնեցավ եւ թիմադրեց հագարագործ ուժերուն, որոնք իր հետ չկարողացան ոտքի գլուխ ելնել եւ ստիպվեցան զինք սպանել։ Իր չարաշուկ մահեն վերջ բոլոր աշխարհ հրաբարակ իջավ նույն նշանապանով։ Բոլորս հայ ենք, բոլորս Hrant ենք։ Մեր նշանապանն է իր նման հավատարիմ ու անվախ ալալ եւ իր գծած ուղիեն հետաբնթել իր հետքերը։ Ոգեգոճելով իր հիշադակը, պետք է գիտակցենք հայու եւ հայ քրիստոնյայի առաքելության ու շարունակենք գրել իր մեզի հանձնած թրոշը։ Կխնդրենք բարձրալ դիրոջ մեծ է Hrant-ի նման մեծ ալուսավոր է իր ոգիով, որբեսի մենք ալ կարենանք շարունակել նույն մարդասիրական գործունեությունը, բանձացնելով իր քաչ անունը։ Կփափակենք հատուկ շնորհակալություն հայտնել այսօրվա ելույթին գազམ་ագերբման մղիչ ուժը հանդիսացող բարոն Ռաֆի Մղդեսյանի, շնորհակալ ենք հարկերի մտավորական ու լրագրող բարոն Çalışlarի, որ ընդառաջելով մեր հրավերին բացվեց այս երևույթը։ Թարցյալ շնորհակալություն այսօրվա հայդակրի մաս կազմող երիտասարդներուն, իրենց մաղթելով հարադեվություն այսպիսի ազգային ցերնակներու մասնակցելու։ Վերջապես, շնորհակալություն ձեր բոլորին, որ ձեր թանկագին ներկայությամբ արժեքավորեցիք սիրելի Հրանտ Դինքի հուշահանդեսը։ Վարչություն Bolsahay մշակութային միության։ Եվ հիմա կհրավիրեմ Հայաստանի տեսփան Արմեն Եգանյան։
Բարի երեկո, սիրելի բարեկամներ, good evening, guest of honor, Mr. Çalışlar. It is a great honor for me to speak today, and we all know that throughout the world, in Toronto, in Ottawa, in Montreal, in Turkey, in Armenia, today we remember. We commemorate, and it is a very tragic day, but it is also very important day today. I remember like now, the day when Hrant was shot. I was sitting in Yerevan in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we were shocked, and we were looking, and we were gathering pieces of information. What happened to this dove, to this peaceful man? I remember even better his funeral. I believe we all do. We all seen the thousands and thousands of people coming together, getting together, and trying to find peace. We were asking questions to each other at that day, whether there are so many Armenians in Istanbul that they came out to commemorate, they came out for giving a tribute to this man. Obviously not. And when we understood that it were Turks that were coming together with Armenians in Istanbul to remember Hrant Dink and to bid him farewell, if we can say so, to a better place, then I understood that something incredibly important happened even after the death of Hrant. And probably, even after his death, he's doing even more for us, for these two people, for these two human communities on the face of this earth to come together. It has been 7 years already. It will be 70 years. It will be more. And I'm sure that we will always remember this very brave and very peaceful man. We had the chance to know him. I'm not the one who can brag about knowing him very well. We have many other people here that knew him very well. But we know now, and we live his legacy right now. I was just talking to my friends here, and I said that the most important thing that is happening right now in Armenian-Turkish relations, and I don't mean political relations, but relations as between people, is what's happening in Turkey. This is what we always wanted. We wanted understanding. We wanted to come to terms. We never wanted fight Turks. We never wanted war with Turks. We're normal people. We want to live in peace with all our neighbors. But recently, through very brave men like Hrant Dink and like many others, and like our guest of honor, we're seeing progress in Turkey. We can discuss, we can talk whether it's too fast or too slow. But there is a progress in Turkey. We have to help intellectuals, academia, journalists, all people have to learn to help each other in order to one day we can remember this brave man and tell him that the task is accomplished. Let's stay hopeful. Thank you very much for all the organizers, and I don't want to take more of your time because we have much more important speakers. Thank you very much.
The following message was read today at the official commemorating ceremonies in Istanbul, Turkey, in front of Agos building. An estimated 40 to 50,000 people were present and listened to the following message that was read by Ms. Gülten Kaya. Dear friends, Hrant's beloved brothers and sisters, on January 19th we fell and bled. It's been 7 years since the departure of the one and only person who would end this century-old debate, which keeps hanging over our lives and makes the state bitter. We are now able to see all the moves in this politically motivated murder chess game. We are aware of all the moves of the bishop, the king, and the pawns. The bullets hit Hrant Dink, and along with him, the bullets also hit our commitment and social contract for a culture of coexistence of all people, whereby everyone lives side by side and touches one another's lives. A culture of coexistence that Hrant Dink has been striving to achieve and blossom. With their intelligence, security forces, and their media, they committed a very well-orchestrated murder guarded by a protective shield which has long become known. As time passed by, we tested our patience, our determination, and our resignation. And during this test, the doves in our hearts migrated. The leaves of our souls dried and fell. Our lives got destroyed in January. The boat sailed off the island, silencing the songs to be sung. Hrant, our dear brother, as we are standing here today, we are wearing the shoes you wore 7 years ago. This is how your brothers and sisters' feet are touching the ground today. And we ask to your great mind, when justice falls, how does humanity find its way? What is it then that will guide humanity? In short, dear friends, is there anyone here who does not doubt the truthfulness of the state? Hrant Dink was massacred by the state. Let us never forget this. Let us never let his life and the history forget this. So much so that these defiant murderers shall never feel at ease. Let this be a poison in their soul and never let them be at peace. And we, the ones who stand right here, will nourish our dreams for humanity with our pain and smiles. Because as the poet Edip Cansever reminds us in his verses, people are beautiful only when they smile. Hrant Dink's memory makes us feel orphaned, yet his pain will make us wiser, his great mind and smile will make us empowered. Salute to convey his message.
Parev, bonjour. Mon nom est Aram Anassad et je suis un Canadien arménien de première génération. Il y a 7 ans aujourd'hui, Hrant Dink a été tué, assassiné pour avoir été le porte-parole des Arméniens en Turquie. Le 19 janvier 2007, un adolescent se faisant passer pour un étudiant tua Dink à coups de portée quand celui-ci retournait à son bureau. Dink, un citoyen turc d'origine arménienne, était direct à propos des questions arméniennes. Il a été poursuivi en justice 3 fois pour avoir enfreint l'article 301 du Code pénal turc qui rend criminel toute insulte de la turqueté, de la nation turque ou des institutions turques. Dink consacra toute sa carrière à dénoncer ces intolérances et est devenu un maître de la défense des droits des minorités ethniques dans un pays où de telles actions sont punissables par la loi. À la suite de son assassinat, des dizaines de milliers de personnes marchèrent du Taksim Square au bureau de l'hebdomadaire arménien Agos. Le cortège funèbre de cet activiste était composé non seulement d'Arméniens, mais aussi de Turcs et de Kurdes. Partout sur les médias, on voyait les images du crime gravées sur la conscience nationale. Les souliers noirs de Hrant Dink sur le drap blanc du coroner, les employés de Agos dévastés, le meurtrier Ogun Samas qui célèbre son exploit sur le drapeau turc en criant « J'ai tué l'infidèle ». Pour certains, ceci était un choc, une honte et un étonnement. Comment cela pouvait-il arriver? Dans une nation si honorable, dans une société si moderne, dans la grande nation turque avec son passé si riche? Comment se pouvait-il qu'on assassine un journaliste dans un pays qui se dit séculaire et démocratique? Si seulement la population turque savait ce qui s'était passé en 1915. Les conséquences du meurtre de Hrant Dink, la naissance et l'organisation de mouvements de protestation en Turquie. Pendant les manifestations, on voyait des pancartes avec le slogan « On est tous Hrant Dink, on est tous arméniens ». Quelques simples paroles qui témoignent de la solidarité du peuple. De plus, il était virtuellement impossible de parler des minorités, de la liberté de presse ou même des droits de l'homme en Turquie sans mentionner l'assassinat de Hrant Dink. On ne criera pas meurtre de l'infidèle, mais plutôt meurtre de notre Arménien, comme Varoujan, comme Krikor Zohrab, comme Siamanto, comme Rupen Sevak. Or, nous sommes encore ici, jeunes ou âgés, à Istanbul, à Van, à Yerevan ou à Montréal. Aujourd'hui, mon message est: nous n'oublierons jamais Hrant Dink. Nous allons nous battre pour sa cause, non avec l'épée, mais comme lui avec la plume, en continuant jusqu'à ce que justice soit faite pour Hrant Dink et pour nos ancêtres. Merci. Maintenant, je cède la parole à Daniel Mordessian.
Hello, my name is Daniel Mordessian. I am a second-generation Canadian Armenian. Similar to Hrant Dink, my ancestors were from Malatya and Kangal Sivas. Hrant Dink was an important model for me because he stood up for justice, peace, and tolerance. I was 9 years old when it happened. I was too young to understand what was going on. Based on my parents' reactions, I knew something bad had happened. Throughout the years, I learned more about him, about who he is, and what he was fighting for. After many discussions within my family about Hrant, my father had the idea to take me and my younger brother to eastern Turkey to see my historical land. In the summer of 2012, that is when our journey began. We landed in Istanbul at night. Our first mission in the morning was to visit the August building, where Hrant Dink was murdered. Upon arrival, we saw 4 police officers in front of the building having their teas and talking amongst themselves. We moved towards the spot where his body was laid down, the very same spot where he was shot by Yasin Hayat. We made a circle, bowed our heads, and started to pray. Those police officers knew who we were, why we were there, and what we were doing. The 4 police officers stopped and looked at us in silence. At that moment, I realized who and what Hrant Dink was all about. Turkey silenced him for insulting Turkishness. But with their own people's actions, they humiliated themselves to the entire world. By killing him, they created more Dinks in and out of Turkey's borders. By killing 1 more Armenian, they created 5 more vocal Armenians like us, today up on this stage. I am a Canadian Armenian, born 9,000 kilometers away from my roots. Roots that are so deep, they carry over 4,000 years of history. Roots that are so strong, it can be connected 9,000 kilometers away. Roots that are so deep, and so strong, no matter how much they try to destroy and silence us, we will survive, we will grow, and we will build life. Hrant Dink represented all of us. He gave a voice to our identity. That's why I went to see my ancestral land, because that's where my roots are. That land is mine as much as Kemal's, Murat's, Erdem's, or Turandai's. This was Hrant Dink's intention. That is why I am not commemorating him. I am honoring Hrant Dink's life and passing on his messages. Thank you.
Çalışlar was born in 1946 in Tarsus, Turkey. He is a Turkish journalist and writer, currently columnist of Radical newspaper. He was previously a columnist for Cumhuriyet and Taraf newspapers. In the 1960s, he participated in the student movement and contributed to Aydınlık newspaper and was imprisoned for 3 years after the 1971 Turkish coup d'etat. He became editor of Aydınlık newspaper in 1978 and then was imprisoned again at the 1980 Turkish coup d'etat. Eventually, he was released in 1988. He is the author of around 20 books. Mr. Çalışlar was a close friend of Hrant Dink, and he attended many seminars with him. He is a very well-known face of CNN Turk, NTV, and TRT, with subjects such as Armenian matters, and of course, any issues related to Hrant Dink. Hargeli Hürer, Mr. Oral Çalışlar is one of those very brave friends in Turkey who on every April 24 participates in the commemoration of the Armenian genocide at Taksim Square in Istanbul. Ladies and gentlemen, I am honored and privileged to invite Mr. Oral Çalışlar.
Excuse me my poor English, because of that I wrote my speech and I will read my speech. The speech of name my speech is To Understand Hrant Dink. Hello and welcome. I know that many of your grandfathers were torn from their motherland and deported, dismissed from Anatolian lands. Those lands were actually the lands of your ancestors. Unfortunately, during the Ottoman Empire, dominating unionist, nationalist, militarist clique, by committing a crime against humanity, carried out the major massacre of Armenians in 1915. They carried out genocide. Anatolia has witnessed a persecution, lost its wealth and deserted. A year from now will be centenary of this shame on humanity. Unfortunately, Turkey has not yet accepted and taken responsibility of these crimes. I feel sorrow and great sadness. I wish that you are not here, but you are all still your Anatolian lands. I wish we could have all lived together there together and appreciate those dances together. We could have picked the apples, the pears, and all the fruits from the trees together. We could have swum in Marmara, in Aegean, and in Mediterranean. We could have cultivated the rich and the warm soil together, but obviously this could not happen. When I meet many of you on foreign lands and return, I feel that part of my heart is left with you. In the name of history, I feel sorry for what happened and what you have lived. I ask for your forgiveness. Years ago, I shared this pain in one of my articles by giving Çalışlar as an example. An Anatolian Armenian, Çalışlar, was recounting his past, and he was saying, even though the future was ahead of me, I could forget my past. I carry it in a corner of my mind. I couldn't forget my past. I carry it in a corner of my mind. Today, as I am 79 years old, and I have not much else to do, I am reminiscing and dreaming aloud. I was born in Selanik. Just after the lands exchange, my pitiful, miserable mother could have miscarried and could have left me in the middle of a desert. While I was dying on the sands, there she could have courageously continued her walk, with blood of her legs towards her slow and painful death. Even though Çalışlar was raised listening to these sad stories of his parents, he always pleaded for a peaceful relationship with the Turkish people. I finished my article with the following situation to Turks. Let's follow this great artist's call and get together in 2015 April to unchain our hearts. Today, on the 7th anniversary of Hrant Dink's death, we are here to commemorate him and to share the pain. Hrant Dink was my brother. He was my friend. We had many interesting journeys between Turkey and around the world with him. The two interesting points I would like to share with you so that we can better understand Hrant Dink. We took a trip together to the city of Antalya in southern Turkey in February of 2006, 11 months before his death. In February of 2006, we were invited by the research department of the University of Atatürk. The subject was apparently freedom of thoughts. It was already too late when we realized that the organizers were Turkish nationalists. We walked into the meetings extremely worried about what will happen and what they would do to us. There were 1,500 seats and each of them was filled. Everyone was holding small Turkish flags in their hands. It is obvious that their intentions were to not let us speak and not make our points come across. At the meeting, there were 4 speakers and moderator, who was a famous Turkish academic nationalist who was naturally against us. One of the other 2 speakers was a retired military officer, and the other was from a teaching staff. During their speeches, we learned how strong of a nationalist they were. It was too late. We were in a trap. No room to escape. The moderator interpreted one of Hrant's points intentionally to create tension. He said, "You are insulting the Turks." To protect Hrant, I immediately interfered and asked to speak first. There was obviously lots of tension in the air. I had no choice but to speak. I started my speech. The audience somewhat started to listen, but there was still hostility in the air. Hrant spoke right after me. He was very convincing, very impressive, and extremely sincere with his words. With his speech, he changed the entire atmosphere in the hall. He changed the nationalist attitude with his words immediately. After him, another academic took the place and he supported Hrant's argument. The audience turned into our favor. When the meeting was over, the audience gave us a standing ovation with enthusiasm. Why I am explaining this to you? First of all, I wanted you to feel and understand Hrant's power and his sincere way of winning people's heart. Even during TV interviews, he came across the same way, capturing the people's attention and making them understand his points. His approach to make his points came across was extremely unusual with the people who were arguing with him. He was preaching to be friends with Turks, yet at the same time, he was adamant to defend the Armenian cause. By founding Agos newspaper and publishing articles about Armenian history in Turkey, the Turkish language, he appealed to everyone. All along, he changed the entire negative image of the Armenian identity, and he used Agos as a tool to teach the mass population of Turks the Armenian history. Through Agos, he conquered the barriers for those who were rigid on the Armenian issues. Hrant's way of thinking was, not all the Turks are influenced under the nationalist movement. In Turkish society, there are many sympathetic Turks who are ready to face the truth about their own history. Furthermore, as of today, over 30,000 Turks in Turkey have signed a declaration to commemorate 1915 Armenian genocide. Last 4 years, every April 24th, every part of Turkey, people are more and more coming out to share their pain and show their sympathy of the Armenian people. Hrant was a visionary man. He knew this was going to happen, and for the very same reason, he continued marching on his path. On the other trip with Hrant 6 months prior to his assassination, we were once again in Antalya, invited by the Turkish Journalists Association for a conference. The same day, a high-ranked judge was murdered. The killer was apprehended. At the beginning, the media portrayed it as if the Islamic group who was behind the killing. We found out later that to create a complot against Islamic government, pro-nationalist groups had orchestrated the killing. Today, it was the Islamic government who was being targeted. Hrant and I were watching the funeral of the judge who was killed. He looked at me and said, "Shortly there will be a presidential elections. Those who are against the Islamic president will create chaos. I am sure this judge was killed by Islamists, but by the nationalists. Not killed by Islamists, but by the nationalists. There will be a bloodshed in those days to come." Hrant was correct. Those who orchestrated Judge's murder killed Hrant as well. First they killed a priest, then Hrant, and after Hrant they killed 3 more Christians. Most of these nationalists were convicted based on their crimes, but those who killed Hrant are not still punished. We all know nationalist forces were behind Hrant's murder, but trials were blurred so that the criminals will not be punished. They didn't want to punish those who killed Hrant. Government within the government forces knowingly did not stop this from happening. By closing a blind eye, they have become participants of the crime. Hrant's case is an ongoing case and looks like it will not be solved easily in the near future. By giving you these examples, I want to portray an image for you, my friends. Hrant was killed because his cause was to find a peaceful approach between Turkey and Armenians. This is why he was killed. For this reason, he was trying to explain himself to the Turks and the Armenians. It was indeed effective. For the first time, millions of Turks cried sincerely for an Armenian. Years back, Hrant and I participated in a TV program with a friend of with a retired ambassador of Turkey. The ambassador admitted that first time he heard about 1915 Armenian genocide when Armenian militants started to kill a Turkish diplomat in 1980s. How is it that an intellectual individual could have never heard about the Armenians or Armenian genocide? It is clear that 1915 has been erased for the memoirs of the Turkish nation. My grandfather was a copper merchant where I was born in Tarsus. His partner was an Armenian Agop Göçerol. Growing up in Tarsus, they were very happy, very few Armenians left in the city, and some of them were converted to Islam. Why there were a few left and why they are converted was not a subject in our house, and as a child we did not question. For the first time, this subject caught a lot of Turkish attention and curiosity when the Turkish diplomats were being killed by Armenians. However, the real impact in Turkish society was felt throughout Turkey after 1990s. For this reason, Hrant and Agos newspaper was the main driving force. For the first time, we learned about the real history and genocide. We started to educate ourselves and explain this to the Turks. My brother Hrant enlightened us with his vision and cause. He created and opened new paths for us. We lost him at an early age and a critical stage of our journey. Our loss is great. Even though many years have passed, the pain and suffering is not diminishing. In fact, by looking into all of your eyes today, I miss him even more and feel his absence within me. He taught us how to be brave. He taught us how to be convincing. And he left a legacy to us. For me, most important, he taught us and guided us into an unknown history of Turkish past and made us further understood and acknowledge this dark chapter of the real Turkish history. I am a 1968 revolutionist, youth movement activist. I spent many years in Turkish military prisons. I have witnessed many horrific images. Several friends being hanged, friends killed in torture chambers. The suffering and pain I have experienced throughout these hard years cannot compare to my suffering and pain I feel with Hrant's loss. He is no longer with me. He left a legacy for us to fight his fight. With Hrant's approach, we can all conquer injustice. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's put our hands together to create new friendships. I salute my dear brother Hrant. I salute all of you. Thank you.
We will now take 5 questions.
Okay.
Öncelikle hoş geldiniz diyeyim. Hrant Dink aynı zamanda Kürtlerin çok yakın dostu ve iyi bir Kürt savunucusuydu. konuşmalarının büyük bir çoğunluğunda sanırım anlaşıldı. Bu konuda da bazı görüşlerinizi alırsak seviniriz.
Cestarmane Payrero, Paregamber'e Hrant Dink, Nuniske Kürder'e de Paregamber, Yev Kürder'le Marki Ülkiç Aşkadak Darazı, Yev Papaki Baron Çalışları, Attesagede İreniz Patsadre.
Issue on the Alevitin issue, we made so many meetings with him in these issues also. Yes, he is very sensitive on the Kurdish issue also. I don't believe in the next years Turkish state recognize the genocide, but we can make some steps. For example, I had an offer like this to the Turkish government. I told one of the ministers this a solution what we can do in 2015 by intellectuals. For example, in 24th of April there are around 285 Armenian intellectuals have been taken from their house and killed. And many of them were very important intellectuals. 7 of them were parliamentarians. For example, Turkish Parliament can commemorate in 2015 7 of their members, for example. And for example, they can commemorate, the lawyers can commemorate, the lawyers which had taken in 24th of April, and also Turkish journalists, my association, for example, Journalists Association, can commemorate the Armenian journalists who are killed. We can do, for example, like some steps like this. But first we must do, I think, first we must touch to each other. We must step by step believe each other. You know, you see today thousands of Turks made meetings for Hrant Dink in several parts of Turkey. In Istanbul, around 40,000 people commemorate Hrant. In Antalya, in Diyarbakır, around 20,000 people made protest for the Hrant's killing. And we can be hopeful. We must work for that.
One question. Sir?
I read this book, the only book he published. İki yakın komşu, iki uzak millet.
Evet.
Two close neighbors and two far.
Evet.
What I understood, I read that book twice. He was trying to bring two nations together. Whatever happened
In the past.
in the past, you know, we all know, but he was looking always to the future. Do you think in 20 or 30 years, his philosophy, or this is what always he was preaching to the Armenians, to the Turkish, do you think the Turkish nation, or Turkish people, will go along with this in the future, with these ideas that two nations can come together, whatever happens to the politicians, what they think, what they do?
Yes, you are right. We can, for example, we have a foundation in Istanbul, Hrant Dink Foundation, and this foundation, I'm in the board of that foundation also. By this foundation, we made several visits to Armenia, and we invite several people from Armenia. For example, we made exchange of journalists, young journalists, Turkish young journalists going to Armenia, and young journalists of Armenia comes to Turkey. They stay 1 week in Istanbul, in several parts of Turkey, and touch with each other. And it's very effective, I think, because after that they wrote articles about, for example, Turkish journalists write on Armenia, Armenian journalists wrote about Turkey, and it's one way of doing this. We are trying by this foundation to do something like that.
Thank you.
We had a question in the back of survey. Yes.
Mr. Çalışlar, I would like to ask you a question. As a Turkish activist for human rights, what, according to you, would the diaspora stand should be?
It's a very hard question. We must look at Hrant. I think he is the good example what can we do, because he was very effective on the diaspora and he was very effective on the Turkish society, and he always be sincere in his attempts. Everybody when listen him thought that he is sincere, and I think the main point is to be sincere with each other.
One last question. Yes.
Two questions. Small one.
Closer,
please. One question is about the exchange of journalism between Turkey and Armenia, and from what I gathered, what I followed up with is that the Turkish journalist in Armenia was somehow, Horia misused his words, and it was publicized differently, and it was very pro-government announcements that he made while he was in Armenia itself. That was one question. I don't know what would be your reaction about it, which was a little bit insulting for us to invite somebody to our house and observe our life and then sugarcoat it and put the government emphasis on his activities in Armenia. That wasn't acceptable from the press point of view. And the second question is, there is a lot of stoppages of Hrant Dink's trial. In other words, on, off, on, off, on, off. The European Court, human rights, back and forth. What do you think where your opinion is, where we are going with this, and soon election is coming, and who is using who? Those are issues that I would like to hear your opinion.
Yeah, the exchanging of journalists, yes. For example, this had happened several times, and several journalists went from Turkey to Armenia, and several journalists came from Armenia to Turkey. Some of them are not acted fairly, but some of them, many of them, acted fairly, and they give very good news about Armenia. That is okay for us. In some percentage, will not be okay, and it is the average is not good, bad. The average is good. Many of them wrote so many good articles about Armenia and about friendship. That's enough. Then we will make another step. We will make another step. By these steps, we will succeed one day. The trial of Hrant Dink, it's a tragic thing, and we will fight for that. We are fighting for that in Turkey. To catch the real killers. We will fight for that in ever.
By the way, we are out in open and publicly well known, and
Pardon?
by the way, they are out in open, publicly well known who they are, and somehow they are rewarded for their work. Most of them are promoted in their jobs. They're doing very well financially, and they're semi-hiding themselves from the public eye under every good eye. This is obvious. We see it. We follow up with it. We follow up the hypocrisy, how it works, and somehow present government is sugarcoating it. From one side, they want to satisfy Europe. From the other side, they're very aware of the nationalism.
Yes, you are right. Yes.
When there has been women killing, 87 people, women beaten in the streets, there has been people stabbed in apartments in the name of nationalism. And there has been a lot of, not only Hrant Dink is an honorable voice of ours, but we see many other shapes and forms of violence disgraceful, and the government so far is silent about it. And this is very dangerous.
Yes, you are right. This is the problem of Turkish democracy, and there are around 17,000 unknown killings in Turkey. Many of them are Kurds. And we are fighting to punish all these killers. And some of them are in jail now. And we try to put the others in jail also. It's a problem of Turkish democracy. We will fight. We are fighting for that.
So that ends our question period. I would now like to invite my group on stage to convey our message. Before we go on to our final message, we would like to thank Bolsahay Miutyun's Executive Committee for giving us the opportunity to commemorate Hrant Dink today. Every year, Bolsahay Miutyun organizes and proudly takes the initiative of organizing such a meaningful event. We thank Mr. Eli Berberian for the music. We thank Mr. Harry Hakimian, Mrs. Huri Hakimian, Mr. Aras Selman for their technical support. We thank Tanya Migdesian for preparing the video clip, and Nadia Apelian for all the translations required. Ladies and gentlemen, after the event, Bolsahay Miutyun's Executive Committee has set up a sweet table and coffee in Hrant Dink's hall. You're all invited. Dear friends, today we wanted to convey a message. A message coming from diaspora youth. Hrant Dink awakened the conscience of many people in Turkey. Currently, many Turkish intellectuals think that Dink alone created a new movement in Turkey. A new movement in Turkish society. A new movement in Turkey's Armenian community. Because of him today, we have many Armenian sisters, Armenian brothers, who were hiding in fear for so long. They're finally finding their true identity. They're going back to their roots, from Sivas, Malatya, to Van, and Dikranagert. The Turkish people, marching by the thousands, may have triggered such a salutary movement. Question remains, will they be able to overthrow their oppressive yoke and get their leaders to accept and apologize for their errors? Will such killings ever stop in Turkey? Will the Armenian genocide, 99 years later, continue to claim more innocent victims? Better yet, will today's Turkish government admit to the past wrongdoings and stop funding the denials and future propaganda of the Armenian genocide? Ladies and gentlemen, we need heroes like Hrant Dink. We need them. We must have this deep belief in order to have the courage and to fight for justice. Today, we commemorate Hrant Dink, and we all here have one mission, and it is to be as fearless as Hrant Dink. Hrant is in us. He is in you, he is in them, he is in each and every one of us. What's important is to find him again and again, to discover him again and be inspired by him. For us, Hrant Dink is not only associated with the image of the white dove, but he is an eagle for the new generation who will continue his voice, and this is our message. Hargeli Hürer, ladies and gentlemen, we thank Mr. Oral Çalışlar for his commitment and dedication to fight Hrant's cause in Turkey, and for taking time to be with us here today to remember, commemorate, and celebrate Hrant's life. Thank you.
Zatkowski, ale wazy